Today we are watching and reacting to Andrew Tate.
I'm gonna find you and peg you, Andrew Tate!
Why they angry? He's speaking reality.
He's called himself the king of toxic masculinity.
And grip her up by the neck. Shut up, bitch!
Beauty is universal. And the thing is, we're talking about black women. They are on the opposite end of the spectrum on all ranks.
If you're in a serious relationship with a girl, she should not have an Instagram. That's cheating.
What you really need, chat, is some Yeah, shut up. Shut up with your feminism. Yeah, come here. That's what you need.
Hi everyone! So if you have been watching my channel for a while, and by a while I mean the last two videos, you would know that I have been bitching on about how 2022 has been a pretty shitty year. Both collectively and in my personal life, it's safe to say that it has been a year of trauma. But at the very least, I can appreciate that it ended with a silver lining. You know, as bad as it is, at least I did not get myself arrested by ordering a pizza.
Emotional, damn it!
Now, I know there isn't much evidence actually supporting this, but just let me believe this. I want to believe that is what happened because it's funny and I really need something to laugh about. Hopefully at this point I don't have to say much about Andrew Tate. So much has already been said about him that at some point in 2022 he was ranked one of the most searched person on the internet, placing him higher than Kim Kardashian, Elon Musk, Kanye West. So his influence is huge, there is no doubt about it. But on a more positive note, this rise of popularity of not just Andrew Tate but many other manospheric figures like Gavin Samuels, Fresh and Fit, and Sneeko has opened up a lot of discussions of men's issues in the online leftist community. Plenty of larger leftist creators like FD Signifier, Noah Samson have stepped up and made videos targeting the manosphere, covering contemporary issues that young men face, what lures them into the manosphere in the first place, why they act the way and believe in the things that they do. And I do want to be clear that I am fully supportive of that. Men's issues are severely underaddressed in the leftist discourse. I myself have spoken about men's issues on this channel. However, doing so in the context of Andrew Tate and the manosphere, whose primary victims are women, who are undoubtedly affected the most by this rhetoric, especially at a time where gender-based violence has intensified more than ever, to me it feels transgressive and a bit inappropriate. I firmly believe that whenever topics of injustice are being discussed, the victims of that injustice should be at the center of that discussion. Say if I'm discussing transphobia, I would do so by centering trans people at the forefront of that discussion instead of talking about how Matt Walsh wasn't able to go to Disneyland when he was 5 and the trauma of that has manifested into intense transphobia or something, I don't know. Or say if I'm discussing racism, I would do so by focusing on black people without sympathizing with the white supremacist. Without trying to play Oppression Olympics, I strongly believe that if Andrew Tate chose any other minority group as his target instead of women, whether it be black people, LGBTQIA+, the disabled, whoever, I seriously doubt he would have been able to gain the amount of fame that he has without being stopped sooner. But because it's women, all he gets is a slap on the wrist and boys will be boys, just ignore him until they shoot up a sorority house. I have yet to see a manosphere video that directly addresses how this sort of rhetoric is harmful towards women. I know the consensus is that it's so obvious how it's dangerous for women that it shouldn't even be up for discussion, but I think the bigger reason for this is because misogyny is so normalized in our society that someone could make a video directly inciting violence towards women and it can still remain monetized for a considerable amount of time. Which is why some feminists claim that there is a rape culture in our society, which, of course, many conservatives and supporters of the manosphere have denied.
Yeah, I don't agree.
Can you tell me why?
Statistically, it doesn't bear out. We charge rapists, we put them in jail. Rape is a very rare crime, and I don't believe that we live in a culture that supports or condones rape.
What many of these people fail to understand is that rape culture does not mean that a society or a culture condones rape, but rather it accepts and often actively encourages an environment where predatory and exploitative behavior can foster. While rape as an offense is shunned upon, events leading up to it like victim blaming, locker room talk are normalized and accepted. And of course, whenever there are women speaking out about this, they are told that they are being too sensitive and stop acting so triggered, when in reality, in my experience at least, it's really the opposers of the feminist movement that tend to blow things up way out of proportion. During the Me Too movement a couple years ago, where women in Hollywood spoke up against being taken advantage of by powerful Hollywood elites, the narrative of false rape accusations was being pushed. Oh, there is this epidemic of false accusations being spread by evil women looking to destroy the lives of good men for petty reasons, when in reality, there is no evidence that women that accuse men of these crimes receive any sort of benefits. If anything, they face more harassment, experience retaliation, setbacks in their career. On top of false rape accusations being extremely rare, it is even rarer for the accused to face any serious consequences. As a man, you are more likely to be a victim of rape or sexual assault than be falsely accused of it. But of course, unfortunately, these facts don't go well over the otherwise rational crowd, because their feelings do care about the facts. However, even if someone were to come up and make a video discussing how this sort of rhetoric is harmful towards women, how it leads to violence against an already vulnerable group, I doubt it will create much of a reaction even within a well-meaning crowd, because misogyny is perhaps the oldest form of bigotry that there is. The oppression of women has been going on for so long that at this point, most of us have gotten desensitized to it. Desensitization is a psychological term referring to overexposure of an experience that eventually diminishes emotional responsiveness, making you less sensitive to that experience. I know for me, especially after the overturning of Roe v. Wade, I have gotten numb to the suffering of women. Whenever I see news that would once distress or upset me, now I don't feel anything anymore. I just shrug it off and move on with my life, sometimes without even realizing it, and that is a scary thing to experience. Apathy is worse than hatred, because at least when you hate something, you care about it enough to express hatred, to express anger, outrage, all these emotions, and you should be outraged enough to do something, otherwise this oppression is only going to continue. Aside from the obvious reason that we live in a patriarchal society that benefits men through the oppression of women, the oppression of women can also often be used as a tool to maneuver political power over other minority groups. 1915's Birth of a Nation, directed by G.W. Griffith, is arguably one of the most racist movies ever made. The film was originally called The Klansman, as it portrays the Ku Klux Klan as a heroic force necessary to preserve American values and maintain white supremacy. In contrast, African Americans, many of whom were played by white actors in blackface, were portrayed as lazy, unintelligent, sexually aggressive. Even if you haven't seen this film, which I haven't either because it's like 3 hours long, I'm sure you might have come across this scene at some point, where a black-faced actor tries to aggressively seduce and lure a white girl, leading her to jump off of a cliff to escape, who was later rescued by a white man. Now, ignoring the racism for a second, which is obvious, this scene is also misogynistic, as it relies on the woman to be this damsel in distress that needs to be saved. It requires her to be weak, helpless, pathetic. This perceived vulnerability of women, in particular white women, was used to vilify and antagonize African Americans, contributing to racial segregation post-emancipation. A similar trope can be seen today in the way conservative media talks about trans women. The whole bathroom debate of trans women preying upon cis women, while blatantly transphobic, is also misogynistic as it assumes cis women to be weak and needing to be protected. The whole debate of trans women in sports is based off of the idea that women are inherently inferior to men, therefore are incapable of competing with trans women. As famously quoted by writer Samuel R. Delany, the oppression of women is the model for all other oppressions in the world. It is the model for the oppression of black people. It is the model for the oppression of children. It is the model for the oppression of workers by their bosses. Whenever there is a power differential, people learn how to do that because of the way women are oppressed in this society. As long as there is misogyny in our society, racism, homophobia, transphobia, or any other forms of bigotry would still exist. And regardless of the title of this video, misogyny has always been normalized in our society. Even if it was subtle, it has always been embedded in our culture. It's just that with the rise of the popularity of Andrew Tate and the manosphere, it has become more widespread, with the style of misogyny being more direct, blatant, and vitriolic. Part of the reason for this is because of this thing that we're on called social media. Mark Zuck posted this graph on Facebook on September 8, 2021, showing the nature of engagement. It shows that the closer a content gets to the edge of the policy line, the more engagement it receives. Which is one of the reasons why, when Andrew Tate first started gaining popularity, many people did not take him seriously. They assumed that it was just a character that he was playing for clicks and views, which we now know is false. But for me, whether or not Andrew Tate or any other manospheric figures actually believe in the things that they say is irrelevant. Because regardless of whether they're playing a character, their audience can't tell the difference and would act upon their rhetoric either way. Despite the numbers on social media, it's difficult to tell how figures like Tate have personally impacted the lives of their audience. But what we do know is that there are plenty of testimonials from women whose relationships were ruined because of Andrew Tate. The scariest part for me is that it is starting young. Boys as young as 11 or 12 years old are now watching Andrew Tate and have fallen for his rhetoric.
So I'm a teacher and I teach 6th grade. We've been in school for 3 days now, and within these 3 days, the amount of young 11-year-old boys that have told me that they love Andrew Tate is ridiculous. This man is really affecting the minds of young men. I had a boy today, 11, turn to a girl and tell her that she's fat. Women need to be thin. She sits at home and she eats all day, and that she's like every other girl in the world, and that she uses men to get money, and at least he's a hard-working man and he works for his money. They're 11. Okay, you need to be aware of what your kids are watching, because this is ridiculous and it's really affecting kids, young kids. It's disgusting.
So what can be done about this? Well, like I said, misogyny is the oldest form of bigotry that there is, and the patriarchal system that we live in is built upon the oppression of women. Therefore, systemic and structural changes need to be implemented to ensure equality and equity. But as individuals, there are a couple things that we can do. Firstly, call out misogyny where you see it, whether it be in the locker rooms or out in the open. Shut it down immediately. Let them know that it's not okay, that this sort of rhetoric would not be tolerated. Be as switched on about misogyny as you would about racism or homophobia. It's never just jokes, as there is a grain of truth behind every joke. Listen to women when they open up about their struggles. See women as people, as a whole person. Usually men are told, what if she were your mother, sister, daughter, in response to misogyny, but in my experience it's pretty futile, as to do that you have to see women as people first, not some object to be dominated over. If you have kids, monitor what they're watching. Don't just hand them an iPad and walk away, as kids, especially young, impressionable boys, are particularly vulnerable to the manosphere's rhetoric. Have a conversation about misogyny and sexism with your peers. Open up a dialogue as long as you feel safe to do so. After all, if we still can't tackle the oldest form of bigotry that there is, people like myself that belong in multiple intersections of identity would not stand a chance. So that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching, especially if you made it till the end. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!